All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the June Walk with the Doc. That's the NBA World Cup Soccer edition here. So the topic for today is novel ideas to improve brain connectivity. So I think it's a universal goal. Everybody wants to grow older, live longer, but as you grow older, stay cognitive, stay aware, try to stay sharp when you're aging. And it used to be taught when we were in medical school that the brain cells that you were born with were it. That was it. You'd have them for your life. Eventually they'd atrophy, some would die off, but that was it. But it turns out that's not true. There's a lot of animal models that show that that new neurons are being made as we grow older and get new experiences in life. In addition to making new neurons, the brain's able to make new connections, and those connections are really important. That connectivity helps with both learning and memory. So we got 3 novel ideas here this week to promote the generation of new brain cells, increase creativity, and improve connectivity in the brain. So what do these famous people have in common? Aristotle, Alexander Hamilton, Thoreau, Beethoven, Virginia Woolf, Steve Jobs, Charles Darwin. They're all luminaries, they're all brilliant, creative thinkers, but they're also obsessive walkers. Many of their ideas were occurring as they were walking. For example, Charles Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol on his nighttime walks through London. He would think of the plot and go home and write it down. The poet William Wordsworth felt that walking was indivisible from the act of writing. So how does walking improve the thought process? How does exercise improve brain connectivity? So now if you've been here or if you've been watching a long time here, walking exercises so many beneficial effects. Lowers blood pressure, lowers diabetes, you lose weight, you feel better, there's less depression. But walking will also help improve memory, protects against cognitive decline. And we're going to add to that list generating new brain cells and promoting creativity and generating new connections. So neuroscientists have shown that really the only one activity that can trigger the birth of brain cells is vigorous exercise. So what we're doing here today. It also helps improve creativity. So many studies have shown that exercising and then sitting and working improves your productivity versus just sitting and thinking and working. For example, there's a classic psychology experiment that asks students to come up with creative ideas for just household objects, a hat, a shovel, things like that. The students who thought while they were walking on a treadmill had higher creativity scores than students who were just sitting and thinking. Now, there may be a physiologic basis why exercise improves all of that, but there's also a mind-freeing effect of exercise. If you think about it, when you're walking or biking or doing something aerobic like that, you get into a cadence, you get into a rhythm, and eventually you don't think about that. You turn your mind off, your body's going on autopilot, and then the mind is free to wander and ponder as you're walking. It's a quiet time for reflection. So that can occur if you're walking or biking, running. They can all produce this cadence and you can get into that rhythm. What if you're playing team sports? If you're playing basketball or playing baseball or playing tennis or pickleball, all of that's good for your exercising, but this kind of thinking likely doesn't occur when you're doing those kinds of sports. The reason is the brain is otherwise occupied in the chess match of the competition. You're thinking, how should I play defense? Where should I hit the ball? And your mind isn't free to wander and work on things that you need to work on. But there's also a physiologic basis to improving the thinking. Neuroscientists have shown that exercise promotes new connections between different parts of the brain and stimulates new brain cells. Where those connections occur, too, is also very interesting. One area is the hippocampus. It's part deep in the brain. It's associated with learning and memory. So as you're exercising, You're increasing the ability of that part of the brain to increase learning and memory. The other part is frontal cortex, the front of the brain. And that's where executive function, learning, exercise, everything is located. So it's been shown that after vigorous exercise, there's specific increases of blood flow to those areas, to the cortex and the hippocampus. One other interesting study showed that people who were sedentary, 55 to 80 years old, half of them, they started walking, 40 minutes on treadmill 3 times a week. They did MRIs before and after the study, after several weeks of walking. The MRIs showed that there was improved connectivity in the people who were walking versus the people who were sedentary. So again, there's a physiologic basis for why exercise improves our brain connectivity. So if you've been here a number of times, you know that exercise isn't really novel. I talk about it a lot. But there were 2 other things that I thought were very interesting, and we'll do them next here. What do you think is better for brain? Handwriting or typewriting? I'm hearing handwriting, you're probably right. So there was an intriguing study showing that handwriting and typewriting, there's different brain networks. They use different parts of the brain. Handwriting is shown to improve brain connectivity and improves memory and learning, and those things weren't true for typing. If you think about it, handwriting requires a lot of fine motor skills of the hand. You have to think about it and produce all those letters. You have to pay greater attention to detail. You're using more of your brain, stimulating more of your brain as you're handwriting versus typing, which is a lot more mechanical and rote. So the authors of this article thought that handwriting is beneficial when you're taking lecture notes, try to increase understanding. And it's not just good for students sitting in a lecture hall. If you're sitting and talking to your financial advisor or your insurance person or even just a plumber to go look at something to do in the house, take notes. It'll help you remember what did they say, and it'll help you learn and understand what they're talking about. I do that all the time when I'm meeting with people in the office and talking about things we need to do going forward. Handwriting those notes and trying to remember. They also felt that handwriting longer pieces, such as an essay or a novel, would be beneficial. All right, what's better for the brain, speaking one language or 2 or multiple languages? We're getting multiple out there. All right, you're right. So studies have shown that speaking multiple languages has a lot of benefits. Multilingual people, there's a later onset of dementia. There's more years of healthy aging, and on average, people that speak multiple tongues have 3 years longer of healthy aging versus people who have a single language. And they tend to live longer as well. And studies have shown that learning a second language, especially at a younger age, increases the brain's neuroplasticity, so there's more connections, and increases the gray matter in the brain. Gray matter is more brain cells. Gray matter is located in the cerebral cortex, the frontal part of the brain. That's the area for processing information, storing memories, making decisions. And here's the graph showing that. So if you look at the middle one, it says B here. It's gray matter density on the y-axis and the proficiency in second language on the bottom axis. So the more proficient, as you go from 1, knowing a couple of words, to 4, where you can really converse in another language, the gray matter density just goes up exponentially, the more proficient you are. The second graph is also interesting. Again, it's gray matter density versus the age when you start learning the second language. So you could probably see the age of the acquisition of the second language. If you're 5, 10, 15 years old, that's going to increase your brain gray matter more than as you get older. Doesn't mean we shouldn't try to do it as we get older. It's just that it helps to when you're younger. So on the last page, I saw this article yesterday after I did my blog post. I thought it was interesting and timely. It looks at exercising and trying to attenuate or decrease stress-induced inflammation. So what they looked at was 2 sets of rats. One was sedentary, one was active, and they tried to stress them out with a high-fat diet. And it looked like the rats that were active and were exercising had less vascular inflammation. So then they did it on people. They looked at sedentary people versus people who are active. Again, they gave them a stressor. You look at what the stressor is, it says acute emotional stress. They made them watch a soccer match. So the match they made them watch was the quarterfinal match in 2024, the European Championship. And these were people that had vested interest. They were people who were rooting for Germany or rooting for Spain, people that were in the match. So apparently it was a very stressful match. And the people that were active exercisers had a lower stress-induced immune response. So exercising decreases the risk for vascular inflammation. So how do we use all this stuff? So if you really want to improve brain connectivity, slow cognitive decline, be more creative, live longer, go for a long walk or several walks, write your novel, compose it in your head, go home, and then handwrite out the plot. And if you really want to improve brain connectivity, then when it's done, translate it into a foreign language. If you're not interested in writing a novel, and that's understandable, I mean, it can still be useful. If you have a vexing problem, you have a tough decision to make. Should you buy a car? Should you lease a car? Should you go for surgery or stay with medications? If there's something that's really bothering you, tough decision that you have to make. Again, go for a long walk, clear your head, think through the issues, and really it works. It'll help you at least elucidate what your feelings are and how you can come to a conclusion. Again, this is something I do all the time through the practice and personally. And going for a long bike ride when you need to make a good decision really does work. Lastly, if you think you're going to get stressed at the Knicks game tonight, or if you're watching your favorite soccer team and think you're going to get stressed, get on the treadmill beforehand, make sure you're exercising, make sure you decrease your risk for vascular inflammation. Thanks for coming out. We'll see everybody July 11th.